The idea of smoking a brisket can be kind of intimidating to many starting their journey of cooking good barbecue. And quite honestly, it is one of the more challenging pieces of meat to master. But today we are going over a few tips and tricks to help you bounce your way to a perfect bark and jiggle. Welcome back, guys and gals. My local H-E-B supermarket finally had these prime brisket points for sale, and since I never have luck finding them, I knew I had to grab this one. This is a prime brisket point weighing 7 1/4 pounds, but before we trim our brisket, let's sharpen our knives with this Bavarian knife sharpener. I like that the instructions on how to sharpen are on the bottom. A few runs at an upward angle gives you a coarse sharpening, and then you follow it with a downward angle for fine sharpening. Sharpens all kinds of knives, even serrated edges, and is available in our Amazon storefront. Link in the video description. So let's see what we're dealing with here. Looks like the fat cap is pretty much already trimmed on this one. Just a few little tags of fat and meat that we need to trim off to make things smoother for our binder and seasoning. And so I pick up these small pieces of fat and meat I call tags with my glove hand and cut them off with my knife. We feel the meat to make sure our surface is smooth. Time for a binder. Now brisket sometimes dries out in certain areas during packing, so a binder ensures that all sides of the meat start off evenly moist. You can cut off these drier, discolored parts of the meat, but that doesn't solve the moisture problem totally. That's why I prefer using a binder, so that the whole surface of the meat is evenly moist. This leads to a more even, thicker, and crustier bark as opposed to not using a binder. Today we are using spicy mustard as a binder. You can use regular mustard, olive oil, avocado oil, hot sauce, and some people even use mayo as a binder. It's really totally up to you. And today we are using our very own rub, squash bark. It's a salt, pepper, garlic based rub with some extra spices for added flavor. It will be for sale very soon. Our channel members will have the first opportunity to buy this rub, so please consider joining our membership to help support the channel. It also helps me continue bringing you this content. So we pretty much have all sides of the brisket seasoned. Let's take it outside to begin our cook. Okay guys, we're outside now and we kind of bunched up our brisket here kind of this way. We're okay with that. We're gonna leave it this way. Real quick, we got the whole setup already. We got the water pan on the bottom, brisket on the top rack. We haven't turned it on, and I'll explain in just a little bit why that is. Now there's a pellet grill cooking method called the 0 to 400 method, commonly mentioned and used by Red Tech forum members, where you place your meat on the grill before turning on your pellet grill. The idea behind this method is that when you turn on your grill and the temperature climbs, there's about 5 to 10 minute period that the smoker is burning a lot of dirty smoke. Pellet grills burn so efficiently, so the few minutes of dirty smoke could add some smoke flavor and get you a head start on that bark. So we're going to try that on our Camp Chef and see how many minutes we can get of dirty smoke. Just to show you, the timer resetted itself. We're at 1 minute now so far that it's been getting that dirty smoke. So we'll see how long that dirty smoke lasts. Not as long as I projected. No more dirty smoke, guys, and we got about 3 minutes and 42 seconds. So the timer resetted itself at about 2.5 minutes in of dirty smoke, plus the 3 minutes and 42 seconds after it restarted leads us to about 6 minutes of dirty smoke in total. A few minutes of dirty smoke will not turn your meat bitter and will most definitely help you get a quicker bark. Give this a try on your smoker and let us know how many minutes of dirty smoke you can get in the comments. So let's move on to the next step. Okay, we got 1 red onion here, 2 cucumbers, and 1 lime. Not sure if 2 cucumbers will fit in 1 mason jar, but we're gonna give it a try. I'm sure you guys have figured out already that we are making our own pickles and red onions to complement our brisket. It's always best to use Kirby or Persian cucumbers to make as pickles, but we could only find these regular English cucumbers, so that's what we are using. We cut off both ends of the cucumbers, then slice the remaining cucumber into thin slices. Now let's work on our brine. Going with 1/2 cup of white vinegar, 1/2 cup of water, 1/2 teaspoon of granulated sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of Diamond Crystal kosher salt, and we're going to warm it up in the microwave. As we are warming up our brine, we add some dillweed to both our jars of cucumbers, and the microwave is beeping. Time to add our warm brine. And as we were pouring our first jar of brine, we found out that we needed more than just 1 cup. In the end, we ended up making 4 cups of this brine for both jars of cucumbers and 1 jar of red onions. How much you'll need really depends on the size of mason jar you are using. So now let's move on to our red onions. To get the most out of the red onion, I always cut the ends off. Then I'm going to make a cut right here over the skin and take that off and then begin my slices. Okay, so there, I made the cut right off there, took off this top layer of skin. I'm going to go ahead and continue the cut like this and then bring the half and start making slices. Just like that, I got the 2. Now let me begin making my slices. And so we sliced these onions as thin as we can. We were able to fit just a little more than half a medium-sized onion into the jar. So that is my preferred method of cutting onions. You really get the most out of your onion when you cut it this way. So let's pour our last cup of brine into these red onions. So this brine would be the more traditional way of how to pickle your red onions. But if you want to add a little bit of Tex-Mex, then add some lime juice. You'll see that the onions will have some extra flavor and will fluorescent much quicker. So now we're going to keep these warm under the sun for about an hour, then we'll put them in the fridge to cool down. Let's go check our brisket. 3 hours in, let's see our, wow, fantastic bark, man. Still hasn't set totally, but it's getting there. It's excellent bark. And so our bark still needs a little more time to set. I forgot to mention that we got off to a late start, so we are smoking the brisket at 300 degrees Fahrenheit due to the lack of time. Ideally, you want to start your temps at 225 or 250, then increase the temp to 275 to 300 towards the end of the cook. We were able to fill the smoke box with wood chips and wood chunks every 30 minutes for the first 3 hours. So now that we have our probe in the brisket, we are shooting for a temperature of about 203 degrees if you plan to serve sliced brisket, or a temp of about 209 degrees if you plan to chop your brisket. We're going to do the latter to make sandwiches. Okay guys, so we're finishing up the brisket. One thing here, this brisket doesn't have is, it doesn't have areas where it's pooling. And what I mean by pooling is like pooling as in, like a little puddle of water. It doesn't have any curves where water would collect. So that was the whole emphasis of me bunching up the brisket like I did, so it could be contoured so that no water would puddle up on top. And if it does puddle up, just pick it up and let it drain that way, because then you're going to get an uneven cook. So you're starting to see that the bark here is pretty much complete all the way around in the same color. And we'll keep turning this around. Oh man, look at this. Crunchy goodness. But anyway, back to the subject. We keep turning this around so that it gets even heat all the way around. If there's a certain hot spot, which is the right side of the pit here, we're going to give each side a turn. So those are my tips on how to get a more even bark on your brisket. So as mentioned, rotating your brisket every 2 hours or so leads to a more even bark. Once the bark is set, which is usually about 160-ish degrees, you can spritz. We used water on this one. 7 hours in and the brisket is temping at 203 degrees. Let's take it out so we can rest it before we serve. But look at this, guys. Look at this. I already put it on to go turn off. We're gonna put this already inside. You saw that? You see how it jiggled? Look at that. Beautiful. And so we are inside now and the brisket is resting. Let's try one of these homemade pickles. Wowzers, did you hear that crunch? Now let's see what this brisket is all about. Look at that, guys. Beautiful, glistening. Time to cut it up. We'll tell you how it ends up. Beautiful. So as much as this was the perfect brisket to slice and it withstood the bend test, we were intending to chop it from the very start. But before that, I had to taste me a little bit of that slice unchopped. One of the best tasting briskets I have ever made. It had such a thick, crispy bark. I almost felt bad chopping it up. I mean, look how thick that bark is. Nonetheless, we had to stick to the plan. This was a Father's Day dinner and we had company over. So we chopped up the brisket and put it in the crock pot with some barbecue sauce. This stuff was mouth-watering delicious. If you guys need to feed a crowd, definitely consider buying a point brisket and chopping it up. The homemade pickles and the red onions is a perfect complement to this. We served it with some wavy potato chips and jalapenos. In the end, 7 1/4 pounds of brisket made 14 sandwiches, and we still had some left over for about 2 more. We appreciate the support you guys and gals have given us. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions. Hope everyone is doing well. Well, that's it for now. Don't forget to take care of yourself and each other. We'll see you on the next one.